Good evening. Wow, that never happens. Welcome. I think I know many people here, but just in case, my name is Marla Gold, and I have the honor of serving as the Dean of the Drexel University School of Public Health. And I want to welcome everyone. I hope you're clapping for this school. It's a wonderful place. We have numerous people that will be joining us, so if anybody can move in a little bit or get ready for people to pop over your knees during the movie, I just wanted to give you a heads up about that. So I wanted to welcome you. You know, I hope, that it's National Public Health Week, and we and many of you that are representing organizations and academic institutions from throughout the region have had an incredible week at our incredible School of Public Health. And just when I think we know the dimensions of our field, our passion, and frankly ourselves, along comes the Jonathan Mann Memorial Lecture. I want to begin, I got to do it, Walter, by once again thanking Dr. D. Walter Cohen, a great friend of Drexel University and the College of Medicine, and member of my advisory board. You got to stand up, don't wave. He's like, I'm not going to do it. Yeah. Walter is a wise sage, and his generous gift makes this annual event possible. I also want to welcome additional members of my advisory council this evening: Jerry Miller, Mary Duden, Stephen Bakitis, Catherine Sohn, Kathy Weiss, who will be here, Bonnie Sharps, Bob Sherrar. Can I ask those folks to stand that are on the advisory council and give our school so much support? Thank you. Thanks. And of course, welcome to our students, faculty, staff, alumni, friends, colleagues that we work with all over the city. Thank you for sharing this most meaningful evening with us. And now I would like to introduce the chair of the Drexel Board of Trustees, Mr. Richard Greenwald. Rich.
Thanks, Marla. Well, it's great to see the audience here and a busy, sunny, finally sunny. Spring is almost here. As I drove down Kelly Drive today, looking at the magnolias and the cherry blossoms, it's great to be a Philadelphian. So welcome for being here for this lecture. On the behalf of Drexel's Board of Trustees and the Drexel University staff, our president, John Fry, we really welcome you here. It's really great. And I also, Walter, want to acknowledge your generosity and help and support. Here's a leader that epitomizes everything we try to do at Drexel. So, Walter, thank you so much. I think, again, I don't want to really take too much time here, but I just wanted to thank everybody. I wanted to acknowledge Marla and her incredible team on all the efforts and activities. I'm on her web blast or whatever, so I mean there are 3 things every day. I mean, I read about public health and whatever. It's great, it's exciting, and I do read them, Marla. So it's great to have a school such as we have here at Drexel, a great university that really does espouse everything we want in leadership against health and social justice. So without any further ado, I'll turn it back to Marla. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Rich. This evening, we'll be seeing a film entitled Beyond Belief, an incredible documentary that defies description. You just have to see it, and you will. A co-sponsor of the showing our film is the American Friends Service Committee. I do want to mention that the school is growing faster than the buildings that we can stay in, and rather than be held back by it, we had the grand pleasure of a wonderful experiment that's become an additional home for us, and that is that we also live on the 2nd floor of the Friends Center Corporation building on 15th and Cherry, one of the few LEED Platinum buildings in the city of Philadelphia, and so we've extended there, and this film gave us a great opportunity in this talk to have the American Friends Service Committee co-sponsor, and here to extend greetings on behalf of the FSC is Sean Cretin. Sean.
I'd like to extend my greetings to all of you and say what a pleasure it is to be able to co-sponsor this event with the Drexel School of Public Health. The American Friends Service Committee is a Quaker organization, an inclusive Quaker organization that has been working for peace since 1917. We were founded just after the U.S. joined in on the Great War, World War I, and war fever was sweeping this country. And a group of friends gathered in Philadelphia who wanted to offer an opportunity for young people to demonstrate that in the response to violence, there is an alternative to more violence. And peace and treating others with respect and reaching out to them, to their common humanity, is that method. So nothing could give me greater pleasure than to be honoring the work of Susan Retik and Patty Quigley, who in the wake of September 11th reached out with that same spirit of love and respect to those who were also suffering. And it's really been a wonderful opportunity for us to demonstrate the shared values we have with the public health community of Drexel and with Susan and her great work.
Thank you. Arguably one of the greatest health and human rights experts to ever grace our planet, Dr. Jonathan Mann was the founding dean of our school. His deep beliefs and scholarly work concerning the interplay of dignity, health, and wellness, the role of societal conditions, particularly poverty and its relation to health, form the very foundation of much of what we do and how we do it through education, research, and public health practice. Here to share remarks about her father is Lydia Mann Klein. Much like her father, Lydia has been a champion for the health and human rights of others across the globe in her own right. She has served in various capacities at a number of global health organizations. Lydia is currently an independent consultant with John Snow Incorporated. JSI is an organization that improves the health of individuals and communities throughout the world by building local capacity to address critical health problems, assisting countries, governments, and communities develop skills and identify solutions that meet their public health needs. She's also co-founding an Institute on Health and Human Rights with the International Association of Physicians in AIDS Care. I actually used to be on the board of IAPAC. It's an organization near and dear to my heart. Previously, she was a senior program officer at World Education, research associate at the Francois Xavier Bagnan Center for Health and Human Rights, and the list goes on and on. She's co-author of the book, The Uprooted, Improving Humanitarian Responses to Forced Migration. Lydia earned her MPH from the Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. We're glad you have one, so we won't hold that against you. An MS degree from Georgetown University and her undergraduate degree from Harvard University. Lydia, it's welcome to have you.
Thank you, Dean Gold. It's truly an honor for me to be here with all of you for what I'm sure will be a very inspiring Jonathan Mann Health and Human Rights Memorial Lecture presentation by Susan Retik. 20 years ago, Jonathan Mann, Larry Gostin, and others founded a movement that was based on the idea of an inextricable connection between health and human rights. At a time when people with HIV were prevented from entering countries like the United States and faced discrimination in accessing education, healthcare, and employment, Jonathan Mann's passionate vision combined with an irresistible mix of hope, optimism, and realism forever changed the way that we see health. Social and economic discrimination, vulnerability, poverty, human rights, all of these entered our paradigm for disease prevention, transmission, and spread. The notion of a connection between health and human rights reverberated along the corridors of power and in the fields and slums of the world. The idea that health and human rights and social justice were important gained prominence. 14 years ago, Jonathan Mann became the founding dean of the School of Public Health at Allegheny University, which would become Drexel. I know because he told me that he was full of hope and excitement for what he and Drexel could accomplish in the field of health and human rights internationally and domestically. He and his wife, Mary Lou Clements Mann, my stepmother, who was a prominent AIDS vaccine researcher at Johns Hopkins, were joyous as they moved near Philadelphia to begin a new life. A joy that for them and those of us who knew them turned to sadness with their untimely death in 1998 in the Swiss airplane crash. For the family, friends, and colleagues that he left behind around the world and at Drexel, the challenge became how to move forward with the vision of a man who is larger than life when he was no longer with us but forever beside us. At a time when I think the health and human rights movement can sometimes lack direction and leadership, particularly with respect to current crises such as environmental disasters, humanitarian emergencies, and the problems caused by terrorism, Drexel is a beacon for those of us who care about health and human rights. Like many of you, and like was referred to in a previous presentation, I receive email updates frequently from Drexel. And I have to say, over and over, these emails tell me one thing. Dean Gold and her team are not getting a lot of sleep. Drexel's staff and students and professors are intimately involved with, committed to, and making a difference to health and human rights around the world, from protecting workers in Asia to helping victims of international violence access the therapy and service that they need, to empowering women to be creative and eloquent advocates for the policies and programs that they need, to providing invaluable input after Hurricane Katrina, the Gulf oil spill, and the tsunami in Japan. Drexel is making contributions. They say that it takes a village. Well, to me, it seems that the village of Drexel is strong, the village of Drexel is committed, and the village of Drexel could not be better providing the leadership, innovation, and commitment envisioned by Jonathan Mann, its first dean and my father. It is into this village that tonight we've all been welcomed and that we have a particular honor and privilege of welcoming Susan Retik. Thank you.
And we have a film yet. Imagine. Thanks, Lydia. This year, as you know, the Mann Lecture is taking a different form, that of a movie and a remarkable speaker. In addition to being National Public Health Week, today is World Health Day, and the world, dare I say it, is on its ear. And I was thinking when I wrote that last night, how's that for a scholarly statement? But I'll repeat it. The world is on its ear. Events of the past year, past month, past week, and today highlight the global way we are all connected and underscore that knowing our neighbors, reaching out across a range of disparate conditions, and helping our neighbors might just be the path to shared health and peace. We reach across to create accessible, affordable, and decent health care for all. We reach across when we send support during natural and person-made disasters, and when we work to prevent them in the first place. We reach across when we work for public health and social justice through the many paths represented here this evening. I now have the privilege of introducing to you our keynote speaker, Susan Retik, before we watch the film, and then we really are going to see the film, and she'll come up after the film is over. I want to talk a little bit about the journey. I'll be quick. I want you to hear about her before you see the film, and then you'll meet her and you'll hear about her, but the film really also tells you a lot about her. I also want to note briefly that her parents are here with us tonight. I have to do this to you, Shelley and Saul Zalesny. Welcome to both of you. Philadelphians, right? So that's really wonderful. Susan Retik is the president and co-founder of Beyond the 11th, a nonprofit organization that empowers widows in Afghanistan who have been afflicted by war, terrorism, and oppression. Susan's commitment to Afghan widows was born from her own journey into widowhood on September 11th, 2001, when her husband David was aboard Flight 11 that hit the World Trade Center, killing all aboard. Susan could not help but observe the differences between the support she experienced as a 9/11 widow and the reality of widows in Afghanistan. She, along with Patty Quigley, who was also a 9/11 widow, soon thereafter established Beyond the 11th, which you'll hear more about. In fact, you'll get to know more about her work through the film, as I mentioned. Susan was recognized by President Obama in August 2010 with the Citizens Award, the second highest civilian award after the Medal of Honor. She has also received numerous other honors, including a prestigious award from Search for Common Ground and Traditional Home Magazine's Classic Woman Award. Susan has been featured in many media outlets, including CNN, People Magazine, NBC Nightly News, and the coveted Oprah Winfrey Show. She was born in Philadelphia and received a Bachelor of Arts degree from Colgate University, where she met David Retik. Although she is no longer a widow herself, Susan continues to champion the cause of Afghan women. She's quite remarkable. And I now give you the film, Beyond Belief, if we can have the lights down.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I first want to thank Drexel for having me. It is such an honor. Having met Lydia, I can only imagine how incredible your father is, because I'm incredibly impressed with you. Thank you to Marla, everybody. This is quite, we had a little reception earlier, and I was saying everybody that I met, I would move from one person to the next, and everybody was so impressive, and it's unbelievable what fabulous things are taking place here at Drexel and in the Philadelphia community. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you. I was telling Marla earlier that oftentimes when we show the film, this is a 45-minute version, but there's also the full documentary is an hour and a half, and so more often than not, I don't actually sit and watch the film because I've seen it, so I will come in after. So I actually haven't seen the film in quite a while, and I feel a little bit shaky, I have to admit, to really just sit in a quiet place and reflect and go back. But I'm glad that I had the opportunity to. So a quick update on where we are. The film was finished in 2006, and so since then, a lot of time has gone by. As you saw at the end, I did remarry to a wonderful guy and had a baby, who's not a baby anymore. Rebecca's 3 years old. And our family is moving forward, and it's been a really good few years, so that's all exciting. And then in terms of Beyond the 11th, some fabulous things have happened over the past few years. Because people have begun to become more familiar with Beyond the 11th and the work that we do, different organizations and NGOs have reached out to us, and as a result, we've learned about new and different programs that we're super excited to be funding. For example, last year in 2010, we helped to fund the very first women's community center in all of Afghanistan. And it's an incredible thing. It's the first time we have given to an actual building rather than simply programming. And I have to say, it feels great. I haven't actually had an opportunity to visit it yet, but I know one day I will. And I'm excited to be able to go to an actual physical location and see all the wonderful programs taking place there. So the Women's Community Center really brings together so many of the things that we try and focus on at Beyond the 11th. So it was built by ARZU, which is one of the NGOs that we had previously worked. And ARZU's focus is providing women opportunities to create beautiful handmade rugs. It's something they can do from their homes, and then they're sold here in the United States. What they were finding, though, is that ARZU was selling these rugs to different individuals, but as well as corporations. And the corporations wanted, for their lobbies or entranceways, really very large rugs. And women could not possibly fit a loom the size need be in their home. And so one of the reasons the Women's Community Center was built was so that it now has a 2-story building where a very large room sits, and women come together and work on these rugs together. And I love that idea, because in Afghanistan, what we hear is oftentimes there's so much depression in Afghanistan, because after all of the years of war and poverty, all of the different things that they deal with, one of the striking things is that women are often relegated to their homes and don't have an opportunity to chat with a neighbor or a friend, and so they feel very isolated. And so by having this community center where women can come together, it's been really powerful. There's also a tea room where women can come together and sip tea and talk. There's access to laundry facilities, so imagine having to walk long distances to wash your laundry, coming to a water source that's freezing cold in winter, carrying your wet laundry. I can't even imagine, and oftentimes, more often than not, the water is dirty. It's not even clean water. So having access to something that we consider, it seems like such a luxury, but access to laundry. We also provided a grant within the community center for a small library, for a playground, so that when the women are using the facility, their children have a place to play in a safe environment, as well as the community center holds classes, literacy classes, human rights awareness classes, and teach lots of different income generating skills so that the women have an opportunity to earn steady income after they've learned different skills. And so it's one of the things I am most proud of because, like I said, it brings together so many of the different things that we believe in. I could talk about all the different programs, and I'm happy to do so, but I'm really, I'm so happy to be here, and I'm curious if you all have questions or would like to have anything specific you'd like me to talk about. So are there any questions out there? All right, I'll see you later. It's got to be one question. Yeah.
And you've been on both sides of why we're there, what would you say to him?
I did actually have a conversation with President Obama, except it was really only about, I don't know, it wasn't very long. And he wasn't really asking my opinion. But it's interesting. I don't pretend to be an expert in military policy. I consider Obama to be an extremely intelligent person who obviously weighs different issues. He takes his job very seriously. He doesn't make rash decisions. They have the brightest people trying to figure this out. Afghanistan is so complicated, and I don't think there's one easy answer. And so if you speak to some people in Afghanistan, they say, get the military out. This is ridiculous. We've been occupied for too long, and we need to figure it out on our own. And then you speak to other people who say, thank goodness for international troops, because we feel more secure, there is more safety, women have more rights now than they used to. It's going to take a long time, but we need time to rebuild. And so I don't have the right answer. I don't know. I don't think that we can remove all of our troops. I don't think we can go cold turkey. I don't think that's going to happen anyway. One thing that what I would want to say, and I think they're trying to move in that direction, is if you think about how many billions, with a B, billions of dollars we've spent on bombs and tanks and all of that kind of artillery and military, if we took the tiniest fraction of that and put it towards healthcare, education, job training, all of those kinds of things. So I think it's a combination. And I've spoken to people in the military who are trying on their own to work with people from the village and from different villages and trying to implement programs. But like I said, they don't know who's with them and who's against them. It's so tricky. I wish it were more clear cut, and obviously if it were, more progress would have been made by now.
I'm curious a little bit about how you begin to get control of the grief enough to begin to initiate the plans to do the documentary film. Could you comment a little bit about how that came about?
Sure. The documentary came about Beth Murphy, who created the film, actually approached, she had heard about the first bike ride that we were going to do. It was in 2004. Somebody that was going to ride, it didn't really say this, but the last short bit, we had 200 other cyclists ride with us the final 30 miles or so, each representing one of the 9/11 victims killed from the New England area. So we were 202 people strong who ended. It was really quite incredible. But so one of those 200 people knew Beth Murphy, told her what we were going to be doing, and Beth picked up the phone and called me and said, I'd love to do a documentary film about your work. And I'm thinking, what? Because we hadn't raised money, we hadn't given any money out, we hadn't been to Afghanistan. I'm thinking she's gonna come and like film me making dinner? I mean, what, you know? But clearly she had a vision, and Beth has become a very dear friend. I think she did an incredible job with the film, and it's been, when she was creating the film, you also have to understand, I never in a million years imagined it to be a full-length film. Neither did she. I think she was thinking it would be something for TV and shorter. And so had I known, I probably would have brushed my hair and, I don't know, worn different clothes. No, I'm just kidding. But it's been an incredible tool for me and Beyond the 11th, because I can't be everywhere. I can't, knock on everybody's door and tell them why I believe so strongly in supporting widows in Afghanistan. But through the documentary, we've had opportunity to reach so many people who wouldn't ordinarily have heard about us in schools and church groups, all different. So it's been wonderful.
There's a Yiddish word, Rossmonas, which means compassion or pity. Where does your Rossmonas come from? What's the source of it?
Shelley and Saul, would you like to stand up? My parents are here. It's interesting. I am a flawed person. I make mistakes right and left. I really do believe that I feel like people, since I make so many mistakes in my life, I need people to forgive me. I, say the wrong thing. I don't hold grudges because I feel like I can't do that because I'm not perfect. And so when I look to other people or groups, I don't know, I just feel like everybody's just human, doing the best we can. Some people make good choices, sometimes make bad choices. I mean, I think at the end of the film, when you heard, it sounds like a narrator out of the blue, but in the real version you see that this was actually Patty's brother, who's a priest, who was speaking. And what he says at the end of that film, the first time I heard it, I was like, oh my gosh, I get it. And what he's saying is, the terrorists didn't start out as terrorists. They made a bad choice which took them down a road, and each choice took them to a place where flying a plane into a building seemed like the right thing to do. And when you break it down like that, I can understand that. I don't forgive it. I don't think, okay, well then that's all right. But at least I can understand it. And so one of the things that we want to do with Beyond the 11th is to give these women and their children different choices. A long time ago, many years ago, we met the woman Zainab who runs Women for Women International. And we sat down and she was telling us a story about how oftentimes, we were asking her about the Taliban and how kids get involved in the Taliban. And she was saying, oftentimes what happens is, you live in a rural area, you have very poor, little access to income and food, and the Taliban comes knocking at your door and says, we want your son to come study with us at our Taliban school. We will provide for him. We will educate him. We will clothe him. We will feed him. And we will give you this big bag of rice. And we'll come back every month and we'll give you this bag of rice. And so you don't have to worry about your other kids. We're thinking, no, don't do it. Don't do it, right? But I don't have to make that kind of choice in my life. And so at that moment, that choice seems like the right thing to do. And this child goes off and learns from the Taliban and that way of thinking, and it spirals. And so if we can be the ones providing that bag of rice to that family, and the education and the health care and all of those things, maybe they'll make different choices. So that's what we're trying to do beyond the 11th.
How does that women's center withstand the pressure from the Taliban? I understand it was a very controversial thing, the center.
Actually, it wasn't particularly controversial. All the different NGOs with whom we work, we make sure that the NGOs really, the people that work there are Afghan people and understand the culture. We don't want to impose our own, American ideals on what they need, because you get, the minute you do, I mean, there have been stories of schools that have been built or whatever that never had the buy-in from the community, and they sit empty, like people won't use them. But this community center, for example, the woman who helped have the whole thing built and really was like the general contractor, whatever you want to call it, she worked very closely with the village where it was built. And so she had the land donated, so there was buy-in there. She had the men within the community literally build the building. We have pictures of it, it's incredible. And in order not to cause friction with the men in the community, even though it's a women's community center, they allow the men to use it, a couple hours every week or whatever. They have like a schedule so that the men feel buy-in. And one of the other programs that we made a grant for within the community centers is baking program, where women learned how to bake Western goods, because there are a lot of NGOs in the area, and the NGOs, the people from outside of Afghanistan, want like more Western pastries and whatnot. So these women learned how to bake these pastries, and they hire the men to deliver them. But it's a way to pull it together. And then, so Razia, who I was talking about, she also, so Patty stepped down back in the end of 2005. And since then, it took her a little while to figure out exactly what she wanted to do. But Razia John is from Afghanistan. She moved to the United States under the Soviet Union's reign. And after 9/11, she decided she really wanted to do something, and she wanted to build a girls' school. And she moved back to Afghanistan to see this girls' school built. And so while she's been in Afghanistan, Patty has been running, helping her to raise money here. And Razia was just here just recently, and we were talking, and it was a little fundraiser, and somebody was asking her, what do you do about the Taliban? And she said, I work with them. And everyone's like, what do you mean, the Taliban? She's like, you can't get anything done in Afghanistan if you're not going to work with the Taliban. And it sounds horrible, but she's realistic, and she understands that her girls' school is safe. It's across the street from a boys' Taliban school. But what she does is she supplies them with their school supplies. So they're indebted to her, and they keep those girls safe, and they keep that school running. And so, again, it's the choices. It's easy to look back and say, oh, forget it, I would never do that. I would not work with the Taliban, that's awful. But then you don't have a girls' school. And so it's this, yin and yang, it's push and pull. You got to figure it out. You have to figure out how to work within the system. And hopefully one day that won't be an issue. But for now, that's where we are. It's just the reality of it. The woman in the, you have a question? Yeah.
I just wanted to say, I think I can speak. A lot of people agree with me, but you are amazing. That was
This is why I called on her.
I just wanted to say, what a role model you are for your children.
Thank you.
That's unbelievable what you did, and I just wanted to comment on the documentary. I think it did such an excellent job. I think either someone narrated it or you said it, but someone said women are women and mothers are mothers, and it did such a phenomenal job on showing how, whether you're a woman here, a woman in Afghanistan, a woman somewhere in Africa, we are the same. And not every documentary is able to do that in such a excellent way. And yeah, it was just a fantastic documentary. Very moving.
Thank you.
And your work is awesome. And it also, it just shows that one person, I've always been a firm believer in this, but one person really can do something so extraordinary and make a huge impact. And in your case, you know, you made this amazing impact over in Afghanistan. And those women, I'm sure, I think about what you guys, their time they spent with you and how much, you know, that means to them. So, and that's just such a inspiring thing, especially, you know, in the School of Public Health, because sometimes you get weighed down by some of the issues we talk about, and then you have to take a step back and be like, I can actually do this. So thanks for giving us that message.
Thank you.
The current status of women. We heard the Taliban had left, now they're back. Have they made progress since you were there, or?
I think with each year there is some progress on some levels, but unfortunately I think security has gotten worse in many areas. There have been more suicide bombings in Kabul, like what we considered kind of safe. I think it's unfortunately not necessarily gotten better. But that said, the number of girls being educated is, you know, so many more. It was in the thousands before, now it's in the millions. I mean, it really is like a huge difference. Like I said earlier, this is a very, very, very long process. Anybody who thinks that Afghanistan in the next 3-5 years is going to be some totally different place is just not going to happen. You know, they've been at war for 30 years now. It's going to take 30 years to get to a better place, but we can't give up. You know, that's my feeling, is that we can't give up on these people. They've been given up on before, and it hasn't worked. And so we need to really continue to give money and give our time and really give them the resources they need to pull themselves out of this difficult time.
I guess all of us really had some kind of negative experience with 9/11, and you more so than probably most everybody in this room. And I'm just curious as to, well, you did a really great job of channeling this negativity into something very positive, and I'm just curious as to how easy or how difficult it was for you to go through that transition of this really, like I said, negative energy and negative process that you could have gone through, and then you just turned it into something really inspiring and positive.
Thanks. You know, like Patty said, we never set out to start a nonprofit. In a million years, I would never have thought one day I'd be speaking at Drexel University. It snowballed. So I had this initial idea, you know, standing in the shower trying to work things out. You know, I had crazy thoughts like, oh, if only I could speak to Osama bin Laden. I could speak reason to him. You know, like, I can do it. I know it. And so you start just kind of fantasizing and thinking, like, well, what could be? And one of the things was that I didn't understand why this group of people hated us and would hijack planes and fly. It just was beyond my comprehension. And so I felt, as a widow, you know, learning about these women in Afghanistan and how difficult their life was, and so what would it be like to be a widow in Afghanistan? And I really wanted to connect with one woman, just kind of to learn about her, and kind of even to like say, look, we're really not bad. We're on the same page here probably. We want the same things for our kids: education, health, security, like the basics. So I want you to learn that about me, and I want to learn this about you. And so how can we connect? And then I kind of realized with this idea, it's kind of hard to just find an Afghan woman and get on the phone and tell her about yourself. So it was like a whole process to kind of figure out, well, what does this mean? And then we started, you know, thinking about how much money we personally wanted to donate, and then, okay, well, maybe that's great, but maybe we'll do a fundraiser, and it all snowballed. And so I think when Patty stepped down from Beyond the 11th, it's because, for lots of different reasons, but one of which was, when did this happen? You know, that I'm going to get up and tell my story in front of a group of people. It wasn't what we had initially set out to do. That said, it's been an incredible journey. And so it didn't happen overnight. It's been, you know, David was killed in 2001. It's going to be 10 years on September 11th this year. 10 years have gone by. I like to think I'm basically the same person I was before he died, but I feel like I have learned and grown so much in these past 10 years, and so it's just a big, long journey.
One of the things I wonder is that lots of times we go and we give and we offer and, you know, we're doing that. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what you learned from the Afghan women and what you bring back that you found valuable.
Right. Their sense of hope, they just never kind of let themselves, we were only there a short time, so this is speaking, you know, real generally. For the most part, the feeling that we walked away with was they really had it so difficult. I mean, to be a widow in Afghanistan is probably among the most difficult positions to be. And they were so, hopeful is the word. And it just gave me, you know, that whole thing that I was saying, like, try not to get back into my American ways. And I don't know if I learned it from the women as much as just the experience of we take for granted. I mean, I can say it about everybody in this room because it's impossible not to, but we often just take for granted so many little things, and they don't have that opportunity to take. If they came to the United States and were living our lives, they would do it too, and that's kind of our goal for everybody, have the luxury to take something for granted. But they were just an incredible group of women. I mean, I often talk, like there was one young girl while we were over there that I had to lean over to the interpreter and say, does she speak English? She was following me in such an incredible way. I really thought she understood what I was saying because that's the kind of connection we had. It was so real and powerful, and I just felt like, you know, before going over to Afghanistan, I really thought, how are we going to change the minds of the men so that they give these women opportunities? And on the plane ride coming back from Afghanistan, I wrote in my journal, really the question is, how are we going to change the minds of the women so that they feel empowered and that they recognize how important they are? So I don't know if I answered your question.
I think we're going to take one more question.
Since your parents are here, I would like to know what they think about your journey and how it had an impact on your children.
They're not getting the last word. That's not fair. This is the second to last question. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
I knew her as a teenager. I know the real Susan. And we're just, proud is not an adequate word. I mean, we're just amazed, proud, and we just love her to death. And she's raising 4 fabulous children. She chose another wonderful husband. David was, her first husband was someone that you would have fashioned for your daughter. You would want him. You would choose him out of a million people. Well, she found another one. So there must be something about Susan.
That's sweet. Thank you. All right, since it's time to wrap up, nobody asked the magic question, which is, how can I help? The most important question. How can I help? Thank you. I tried to plant the question, but no. The work of Beyond the 11th could not happen if people did not donate money, because honestly, by providing grants to these phenomenal NGOs working in Afghanistan, it's really what it is all about. For the 10-year anniversary of 9/11, which is just going to be right around the corner, we are reprising our bike ride from Ground Zero in New York City back to Boston, 3 days, 270 miles. I don't know how many of you ride. You're welcome to join us for the whole 3 days. We also have a 25-mile ride at the end. But for those of you who are not planning to come up to Boston, we do have an opportunity to become a virtual rider where you go on our website and you can register and you can email friends and family and just say, how are you commemorating the 10-year anniversary of 9/11? Do you want to sit watch the TV and watch the planes fly into the building over and over again? or do you want to do something? It's not hard. It's like such a simple ask. But if you register and become a virtual writer, it costs $10 to register, and little website is set up for you that you can just email out. We have a video. It's awesome. So if anyone in this room is thinking about how to mark the 10-year anniversary, I really hope that you'll go ahead and help us out. So thank you again.